전 세계 비트코인 경제학 분야에서 작가님께서 집필하신 더 비트코인 스탠다드 책이 가장 많이 팔린 것으로 알고 있는데 소감이 어떠신지랑 이번에 집필하신 더 피아트 스탠다드 책은 앞선 책과 비교할 때 어떤 점이 좀 다른지 궁금합니다.
The books are, you could say that they are, the second book is a continuation of the first. Both books discuss Bitcoin and fiat. The first one focuses more on studying and explaining Bitcoin from the technical perspective and why it solves the problems of fiat. The second book focuses on explaining fiat from a technical perspective and why it is a problem and explaining its problems more and also discussing how Bitcoin fixes this.
그러면 이번 책에서 얘기하고자 하는 내용의 결론을 한 1분 정도로 간략히 설명 가능하실까요?
Fiat money is created when a new debt is created. So whenever somebody borrows, new fiat money is created. If you understand that, you understand a lot about how the world around us works. There is a huge incentive for people to get into debt because debt creates money. It's like every time you borrow money, somebody creates new money. It's like you're mining new gold. So that's why everybody is in debt. That's why everybody has an incentive to get into debt. And this, I believe, creates a lot of problems for society. It destroys people's savings. It destroys people's ability to think of the future in the long term. It destroys all kinds of important, essential institutions because it allows the government to meddle in these institutions and it takes away the wealth from the hands of people. And Bitcoin is the best solution for this because it's a form of money that is a present good. It's not a future good. It's not credit.
그러면 작가님께서는 비트코인을 한 문장으로 좀 정의한다면 뭐라고 생각하시는지 궁금합니다.
Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer software that operates a payment network, and it's important for two main reasons. Number one, the token of the payment network is fixed in supply and nobody can make more of it. And secondly, the network is permissionless. Anyone can join it. Nobody can stop anybody from using it. So those two properties effectively replace the functions of a central bank. It allows us to do what central banks do in a much more efficient way.
그러면 이 비트코인이 기존의 달러와 유로화 등 전 세계 화폐를 완전히 대체할 수 있을까요?
I think so, absolutely. I think there is no reason why it cannot. It is a much better form of money. And people who use it will benefit enormously, and people who don't use it will lose. So in the long run, everybody will end up using it, I think.
그러면 비트코인이 정말 그 화폐를 대체하게 됐을 때 기존의 달러라는 화폐로서 패권을 잡았던 미국은 어떻게 될까요?
They will cry a lot, probably. I think I'm joking, obviously. It's bad for the US government, but I think it's going to be a very good thing for the US as a country and for the people of the US. This idea that the US benefits from the dollar, I think, is not correct. A small minority of the population of the US benefits at the expense of the majority of Americans and at the expense of the majority of the world. Because the dollar has destroyed American industrial capacity because it makes no sense for them to export anything because they just export dollars. So they no longer produce as much as they used to, and you see their productive capacities being dismantled, and the only thing that America produces is paper money. And everybody in America is working, not everybody, but people increasingly work bullshit jobs that are just about money, being close to the money printer. You replaced all of that with people being productive if you have a hard money that the government cannot print.
그러면 작가님께서는 실제 비트코인에 투자하고 계신지와 투자하고 있다면 언제까지 가져가실지 궁금합니다.
I am investing in Bitcoin. I would recommend that people hold Bitcoin for at least 5 years. I think you should buy Bitcoin with a 5-year horizon at least, but think about it for the long term and don't speculate on it short term. Because yes, in the short term there's a lot of volatility, but in the long term I think it just goes up.
아직 사실 비트코인에 투자하고 있지 않은 분들도 계신데 그분들에게 한마디 해주신다면요.
I think it's a much better technology for money, and if you've replaced your horse with a car, if you've replaced your typewriter with a computer, I believe it's going to be the same thing, that you will replace your government money with Bitcoin. But there's a big difference. If you were late to the car and then you buy a car late, it's still going to be the same car that everybody buys. if you're late to the computer, if you're late to Google, if you're late to Facebook, when you join and you get the same Facebook account as everybody else. You buy the same laptop as everybody else. You buy the same Google account as everybody else. But with Bitcoin, it's different. If you join today, you take all of your fiat money and you replace it with Bitcoin. It's very different than if you joined 5 years ago or if you join 5 years from now. The earlier you join, the more Bitcoin you can get for your money. And so the user experience is extremely different if you're early or late. People who are early are able to transfer their money into Bitcoin and get significant amounts of Bitcoin and then benefit from the appreciation of Bitcoin. If you're late, you're going to be hurt by the depreciation of fiat, and then you will end up with a lot less Bitcoin. So unlike with the car or Google or Facebook, the time that you join matters a lot.
I think the most interesting and pivotal thing to understand about fiat, which you understand when you compare it to Bitcoin, is that fiat money is mined or is created every time new debt is created. So with gold, if you want to make new gold, you have to go dig underground deep and take out sand and process it, and then you'll have some gold. With Bitcoin, you have to perform economic calculations on your computer that then mine new Bitcoin. But with fiat, in order to make new fiat, you just go to a financial institution and you ask them for a loan, and then they make new money. So if you go to your bank and you borrow $1 million from the bank doesn't have the $1 million that they're going to give you. They don't take $1 million from their own money or from their clients to give to you. They make the $1 million, or they make most of the $1 million. They just create them when you get them. So you just tell them, I want $1 million. If they agree, they put the $1 million in your bank account. So that's creating new money. So every time somebody borrows, new money is created. And so the result of that is, just like everybody tries to mine gold, everybody tries to make Bitcoin, but it's hard to make gold, it's hard to make Bitcoin, but it's not hard to make fiat money. And so everybody makes fiat money by borrowing. And that's why everybody has an incentive to borrow. That's why individuals, if you want to buy a house, you borrow to buy a house. Corporation wants to invest, they borrow to invest. Government borrows. So local government, it's in debt. Everybody is in debt. Why is everybody in debt? Because every time you get into debt, new money is created. So you're printing money by getting into debt. So that's very lucrative. So that, in my mind, explains why the whole world is in debt. Everybody's in debt, and it's just considered normal. You're born into a family with debt, and you die in more debt, and you hand over your children more debt. And that people just think this is completely normal, but this is just a function of fiat money. This was not the case before fiat money. This was not the case before getting into debt was made into, was allowed to create money. And so what does it mean if you have a world in which the government is able to make money by borrowing? The government is going to borrow a lot, but also the government is going to have a lot of money. And that's going to allow it to influence society very heavily. And on the other hand, society and individuals are going to have a lot less money because their money is constantly being devalued. So fiat money takes away wealth and purchasing power from you as an individual and puts it in the hands of government. And so that, in my mind, explains how in the 20th century we see that governments all over the world became a lot more powerful, and they became a lot more interventionists. They tell you what to do with your life. They stop you from doing things and they ask you to do things. And in the second part of the book, we discuss the impact of this in detail on everything, like the family. So now, because the government can spend money, because you can't save money, you have less of an incentive and less of an ability to build a family. So people start not getting married, or if they get married, they have fewer kids, or they don't have kids. The United States issues the only currency that the whole world uses, even though the rest of the world, they have their own currencies. All those currencies are practically US dollars, because the central banks of the world hold US dollars in reserve. So the US dollar ends up having a lot of power, and the US government ends up having a lot of power. Yeah, and so I think we can understand the world a lot when we understand how the money of the world works, because money is, you can think of it as like the operating system of society. Every transaction anybody carries out, one half of it is money. So everything is affected by money. If the money is constantly getting devalued, all of our attitudes and our behaviors will be changed based on the fact that our money is getting devalued. So this is, after all, even though it's about fiat, it's really a book about Bitcoin. It talks more and more about Bitcoin. And in the third part of the book, we discuss why I think Bitcoin is really the only solution to the problems that fiat creates. And in essence, the key idea is that Bitcoin is not money that is debt. Bitcoin is a good. It's a present good. It's already been produced, and there's no future obligation on anybody on it in order for it to work as money. And I think the issue with Bitcoin is that it allows people to go back to saving, holding on to something that holds on to value into the future and appreciates into the future. So if that happens, you're able to save. If you save, you don't need to get into debt. So instead of having to borrow in order to buy a house, you save money, and then the money appreciates over time, and you're able to buy a house. And then instead of you constantly having to work for a money that's constantly getting devalued in order to finance government spending, we end up in a world in which you end up maintaining the purchasing power that you gained for yourself. And therefore you're better able to provide for yourself, and the government is less able to manage and control your life. And I think with Bitcoin, we're going to see more and more of this situation. And ultimately, what the book is saying is that a lot of Bitcoiners sometimes suggest that fiat money has to collapse, and then when it collapses, Bitcoin will rise. And in this book, I try to explain that, first of all, fiat money doesn't necessarily have to collapse. It's been working for 50 years, and it can continue. And secondly, regardless of whether it collapses or not, Bitcoin is better money, and Bitcoin wins in the same way that the computer replaces the typewriter, same way the car replaces the horse, Bitcoin replaces fiat. Ultimately, I think the case for why Bitcoin continues to grow is that people need to hold a form of cash in their portfolio. Everybody has to hold cash. You hold some cash in your pocket, it's physical money. You have cash in your bank account, the money that is available for you to spend from your checking account. And you also have cash in your investment portfolio, where you hold assets that are very liquid, not stocks. You hold things like government bonds or just money in a bank account. So this is a huge, huge, huge market. There's about $100 trillion of physical cash in the world, $100 trillion in checking accounts, and about $100 trillion in government bonds. So add all those three, this $300 trillion market is Bitcoin's potential total addressable market. So Bitcoin currently is only 1 trillion, but it could grow up to 300 trillion. And so ultimately, I think it's just that the fiat currencies are built to constantly devalue and lose value over time, whereas Bitcoin gains value over time. And so people who hold more cash balances in fiat will lose money over time. People who hold cash balances in Bitcoin will gain money over time. And this is more important than any theoretical consideration you might have, or any theoretical objection you might have to Bitcoin, because if things continue like they continue the last 15 years, Bitcoin balances will continue to appreciate, Bitcoin holders will continue to get better off, and fiat balances will depreciate, and fiat holders will get worse and worse off. So if this continues to happen, and people start accumulating more Bitcoin, and people have more Bitcoin, then people need to borrow less. They need to get less debt. So if you just save with your Bitcoin, you buy your house from Bitcoin, you don't need to buy, you don't need a mortgage to buy a house. So as people adopt more and more Bitcoin, people will get into less and less debt. And that leads to the creation of less and less fiat money. And so therefore, in this book is the vision of how Bitcoin can rise without fiat money having to be destroyed in hyperinflation. Because actually the rise of Bitcoin leads to the creation of less fiat money. Because people are not borrowing. Remember, we said fiat is created when people borrow. So people are not borrowing because they hold Bitcoin. Then less fiat is created. So fiat doesn't collapse because it's not getting hyperinflationary because there's so much supply. On the contrary, the supply is being reduced, and the size of the fiat is being reduced, and Bitcoin continues to grow. And I think this is how we can see that the two can coexist effectively, and for a while, and that the rise of Bitcoin doesn't have to be, that doesn't need a collapse of fiat.
So, how did you discover Bitcoin as a great alternative to fiat currency?
So, in my mind, I've always been looking for something like Bitcoin before Bitcoin even existed. I was already aware of a lot of these problems about fiat money before Bitcoin. And for me at that time, the solution was gold. So when I first heard about Bitcoin, I don't even remember when I first heard about it, but I remember for the first 2-3 years that I heard about it, I thought, ha ha ha, computer people think that they can do something better than gold. What do they know? This is going to be a disaster. If you know Peter Schiff, I was exactly like Peter Schiff when I first heard about Bitcoin. But I heard about Bitcoin when Bitcoin was under $1. And I kept laughing at it until it hit about $1,000. And I'm just sitting there saying it's going to collapse, it's going to die, government's going to shut it down, government will throw them in jail. And because of that, I didn't pay much attention to it because I just thought, obviously it's going to die, so why should I waste my time reading and learning about it? Because, you know, very stupid thing to do, to assume that you know things so you don't need to learn about them because you already know them. The stupid trap where you're just stuck in the fact that, well, you don't know what you don't know, but you are sure that you know it. So because of that, I spent a lot of time not considering Bitcoin. Then around 2014, I started thinking, okay, maybe this thing can work, maybe it won't die. And here we are 10 years later and it's still working.
And Bitcoin is now worth $1 trillion. It might go up to $300 trillion. I was very, very excited. So what makes Bitcoin unique? There are already millions of altcoins in circulation, and isn't it possible that someone creates a cryptocurrency which is more convenient, technologically advanced, and or more universally accepted than Bitcoin?
I don't think they can create something like Bitcoin or better than Bitcoin because the tricky part about Bitcoin is not something that is just in code that you can copy. You can copy the code, but you can't copy the magic juice that made it so special. And specifically, this is the case for Bitcoin because Bitcoin was the first. So it was the only one that was truly neutral, so nobody could control it. And the person who did it disappeared. And he disappeared, and Bitcoin continued to grow without him. And it grew for now 14 years without the owner. Once you had a currency that was neutral and can grow without its owner, then everybody who's looking for a neutral currency that nobody controls is going to go to that currency. And then everybody else who's looking for something that they can control is going to make their own currency. So the only currencies that remain after that are currencies that somebody built who can control. So in my mind, you can't, after Bitcoin, you can't go recreate it, make a new digital currency, let it grow, have it grow without you being in charge of it. And if you're in charge of it, then you can change everything about it. So it's really the challenge of being able to create something and not control it. That's the really difficult part, I think.
작가님 오늘 강연 보시고 또 대담까지 하셨는데 소감 간단하게 한마디 해주세요.
정말 감동적이었습니다. 제가 여기 오기 전에는 비트코인 맥시멀리스트가 아니었거든요. 이제 집에 갈 때는 맥시멀리스트로 갈 것 같습니다. 이게 기본적으로 이 법정 화폐라는 거, 이게 진짜 문제가 많다니까 이게.
비트코인의 비중을 좀 늘릴 생각도 있으세요?
그쵸. 지금 제가 안 그래도 한국 주식을 좀 팔아가지고 지금 그 코인에 넣으려고 현금을 준비해놨는데 제가 게을러 빠져가지고 아직 그거를 옮겨가지고 안 넣고 있거든요. 오늘 크게 후회하고 있습니다. 네, 일단 당장 집에 가가지고 업비트에다가 돈을 넘기고 이제 거래를 좀 시작을 해야 될 것 같습니다. 네.